and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and I first want to just say Happy New Year again. I know you guys saw a video on Tuesday, and I gave you my greetings then, but I filmed those actually a couple weeks before that actual date, so I had them all scheduled because we were out of town. So we're back, and life is not quite resuming yet. My kids don't go back to school until next Tuesday, but I just wanted to say Happy New Year for real, now that we are actually all in the new year. So today I have a little Q&A video for you. I had sent out sorry, just hit the camera. I had sent out the call for if anyone had any questions, sewing or personal related, and I would answer them for today's video. But before, just to get a little housekeeping, I've got lights. I got lights for Christmas. So I'm still on my phone camera. I got some money for Christmas, and so I'm just trying to make some decisions on what I want to purchase with that. Trying to decide which camera I want. But for now, I do have studio lights. So let me know if you can tell a difference. They're not super fancy ones. They weren't a lot of money, but I think maybe it's going to allow me to film down here in my sewing room. I mean, please disregard that mess. That's really embarrassing. And not have to be in my living room all the time, just because that kind of can make a mess a little bit and then have to clean it up and everything else. Anyway, I can kind of just shut the door in this room. Plus, this is just my happy space, so I'm going to be in here as much as I can. So anyway, that is piece of business number one. Number two, I was looking at my analytics a little bit for the YouTube channel, and we are getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. Let's see, last I checked, we were right at 950. When we hit the 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a giveaway, and I'll wait and talk about that when we hit the 1,000 subscribers. But yay! So that's very exciting. But also, I was looking at my analytics and noticed that only about half, actually I think it was even 40% of my viewers are actual subscribers. So I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any of the fun stuff we have planned for 2019, because I do have a lot of really fun stuff in the works, just kind of in my brain, planned and ready to go. So now that that's out of the way, we will dig into this Q&A, and I'll write the question out just so while I'm answering it, just make it easier for you guys to know what I'm talking about. And I don't have a whole lot. And if I did miss your question, I was pulling questions off of Instagram and off of comments on YouTube, and they were like multiple. It wasn't just one video, it was like my Vlogmas. And so anyway, if I missed your question, just let me know in the comment section of this video, and I will get it answered in another Q&A that I'll do, later on down the road. Okay, so question one was Sally, and she asked, have you ever thought of making your own patterns, seeing as you have such amazing skills in dressmaking? Well, thank you, Sally. That is too kind and very kind of you indeed. No, I have no desire to make my own patterns. I enjoy pattern drafting a little bit, and I can get into it for myself, but I don't have that passion. I do have a passion. I'm really felt led to be doing this YouTube channel right now, and I do feel led to be passing on my sewing knowledge to those, whether it be through this YouTube channel or through classes like in person. But I am feeling led to do that. Sewing patterns is just not something that I see me doing. That's just not anything that speaks to my fancy or, be a passion. So no, I won't be doing any sewing patterns. Okay, Jan asked quite a few questions, so I will go all the way through Jan's questions real quick. What project made you realize you have mad sewing skills? And then she goes on to say, mine was a matched plaid culottes and vest I made in high school. The plaid matched perfectly, and I got so many compliments. Of course, that outfit was quite cool in the early 70s. I love that. I love that. My mom talks about a pantsuit that my great aunts, so they would have been my great grandmother's sisters, they were both professional seamstresses, and I knew them, but they both passed away when I was young, like before let's see, Aunt B was probably before I was 10, and the other one, I think she died in 92, so I'd have been 12. And I was close with them, but I was not into sewing at all, at that point. And I'll talk about that. That was a question down here. Sorry, I also have my laptop right here so that I can see the questions. But anyway, she talks about a pantsuit that she made, so I just love that. So when did I realize I had mad sewing skills? So I will get into this a little bit more because there was some questions about when I started sewing and that kind of thing. But my very first foray into clothing construction. So I'd made a couple of costumes for my kids for Christmas, for Halloween, but my first real time when I was ready to start really figuring out garment sewing, I took a class. This is so like typical of me. I never do anything like, I hate things that are like beginner pattern. No, I didn't want to sew a beginner pattern. So I took a class on how to fit a jacket pattern to my body, and it was with actually it was my mentor. That's how I met my mentor. I took this class on how to fit a jacket pattern to your body. And then I took a follow-up class with her because our brains work like the same. She hardly even has to expand on things just because our brains work the same. Sorry, I'm also getting over a little coffee cough. But I took that class with her and we hit it off so well that I took the class next to it was how to construct a jacket. And I delved right into a Vogue pattern blazer. It was a Claire Schaefer Vogue blazer. And when I kept it. I still have that blazer and it is not good. But at the time, I thought it was an amazing skill that I had a fitted blazer that fit me somewhat. Again, only because my burgeoning sewing skills at that time. But yes, that was the first time I really realized that, and I think part of that had to do with Joyce as well, because she was just so helpful and so like, yes, our brains work the same. And it was after that class that she reached out to me and wanted to know if I would be interested in coming. She was still working at the time, if I would be interested in coming and learning from her. And I jumped on that. It was the best decision I've made, aside from the decision to marry my husband. So yeah, that blazer probably was the first time I realized that there's something to this. Okay, but I wouldn't say I knew I had mad sewing skills. I think that was just the moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do some amazing things if I really work at it. So yeah. Okay, Jan also, have you ever given up on a project because it wasn't worth the frustration? Yes, many times actually. I am a big believer. I am not a perfectionist. My husband is a perfectionist. I am not, but I'm a big believer in, cut your losses. Like, you spend so much time on projects, and when you realize, now I'm not saying just to give up when things get tough, because there's definitely, I fit as I go and that kind of thing. But when you get to a point where you're like, this is a mess and I can't undo this, or I don't have the skill set right now to know how to undo this, there is no shame. And even if you don't feel bad about getting rid of it or whatever, just put it aside. Have a bucket of shame, whatever. There's no shame in quitting if something is just not working. And then my suggestion is, at that point, do a palette cleanser. If you're a beginning dressmaker and you've maybe tried something that's a little beyond your skill set and you just can't figure out how to get out of a bind that you're in at that time, set it aside and then work on something, maybe a shift dress, or if you can sew with knits, if that's something you enjoy, like a t-shirt, or just something quick and simple, just a regular skirt, that kind of thing, something that you've done before that and it's a great palette cleanser. And then maybe when you do have the skill set, maybe you've messed up at installing an invisible zipper and you just haven't done very many of those. Put it aside. Wait until you are really good at putting in invisible zippers, and then you can always go back. Okay, let's see. Jan also had one more question, and she said, is it worth the money to get a sewing mannequin? Okay. I have a sewing mannequin. I did not pay very much for her. I got her I'm looking at her right now. Got her on sale. I paid less than $100 for her, I think, at Joann's. I only use her for marking things. And sometimes if I'm mid-sewing, like especially coats, something that needs like a little bit of structure, and I'm worried about, for instance, a blazer or a coat where I haven't put the sleeves in yet, and I'm worried about the arm size stretching out because it needs to be supported so well before the sleeves get in, I will let it rest on my mannequin. So I use her as like a hanger. Or like I said, if I'm marking hems, that kind of thing, I do it on my mannequin a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times. So maybe like on down the road, can be helpful. I would not spend a lot of money. I have never tried using one of those body double mannequins. I know that those can get quite pricey. And I don't do a lot of draping. I don't do any pattern drafting. I have tried draping and I get it, but it's not something that makes my brain sing like flat pattern drafting. I love the math behind flat pattern drafting. That is something I can get behind. So I don't drape or anything on my mannequin. So yeah, she's basically just a glorified hanger. So yeah, maybe on down your sewing line, down the road when you have other things, she can be helpful, but I would not spend big bucks on a mannequin personally. Okay, so that was all Jan. All right, and then Christy sent some questions here. So hers was, number one, when did you start sewing? It's a, let's see, 3-part question. So her first question was, when did you start sewing? How did you become interested? And did you ever take a long break, like years? I started sewing in June of 2006, and I know that because I was pregnant and could not find baby bedding. I had boy-girl twins, could not find baby bedding that was gender neutral, that wasn't blah. I wanted a lot of color. So I told my mom, again, I never go. This is my personality. I just don't go halvesies. I told my mom, let's just make it. My mom, again, she had 2 aunts that were like grandmothers to her. They raised her and everything else. I mean, they were more her grandmother than her actual grandmother was. But she had learned from them a little bit in school, but I surpassed my mother a long time ago in sewing skills. So we're talking like basic sewing skills and then no sewing skills. And we went to a home decor fabric shop, dropped quite a bit of money on fabrics, and we got the pattern that was for a valance, bed skirts, a little quilt, like just for the bed, and something else. Oh, the bumper that went around the inside of the bed. I think that was it. But we had to do those times 2. So 2 bed skirts, 2 quilts, 2 baby bumpers, and then the valance for the window. I think that was it. But anyway, we sat down, and I was September, I had them, or it was June, I had them in September, but I was still really big already. But I remember my mom got me a sewing machine for my birthday, and so my birthday was in February, so she had got me a sewing machine when I was newly pregnant. And I think that was just like a bee in my bonnet. Like I just said, I'm interested in maybe learning how to sew. I'd been into paper crafts and all that kind of stuff. I was missing like a niche project. See, I'm trying to think back. So anyway, I had the sewing machine my mom got me at Costco. I still have it. My kids sew on it. And we made the baby bedding. And from that point on, I was hooked. So that's how I became interested. And that's when I started sewing. And no, I have not taken a break at all since that happened. So then it was a lot of home decor sewing. One of my friends got me a Amy Butler book for my birthday or Christmas, maybe that following Christmas. And I just started tearing through those projects. They're just like little home projects, like little fun things. Tore through that book. And then I was completely self-taught from 2006 up until we moved to Indiana in 2011. And that's when I was getting bored with home decor sewing. So when we moved here, I didn't know anybody. So I literally just sat and set up my sewing machine and sewed curtains for my entire house and pillows and all that kind of stuff because I just didn't know anybody yet. But I was getting bored with home decor sewing. And that is when I took a class at French Seam, which is a local fabric shop here in Indianapolis. And that's how I met Joyce. And the rest has been history. And that was in 2011 that I met Joyce. Okay. So her second question was, are you a fan of different machine feet? If so, what are your favorites? Yes, I am. But not like a ton. I use a walking foot on my, you can see it right there, my Janome. Just for any time I'm doing anything with knits. A lot of like my swimwear. If I am doing any quilting, I don't ever do quilts. But if I'm quilting like my lining for my jacket, got a sleepy puppy next to me, that kind of stuff, I will use the walking foot. And pretty much any time knits or any tricky fabric, I have my walking foot on that machine. On this machine, I use a zipper foot a lot. I use an invisible zipper foot. Let's see what else. I have a piping foot that I'll use if I'm making piping. When I did that Carolyn pajama top for the blouse, I used a piping foot to make all of my piping. That was lovely. I have rolled hem feet in a couple of different widths. I just need to play with them. I'm very interested in them. They're just really hard to like maneuver, especially if you get onto a curved hem. And I know it can be done, but I think it just takes practice, and I'm not super practiced yet with that. But yeah, those are the feet that I use. Okay, do you have a preference in sewing knits or wovens? No, I like doing both, and I'll go through phases. Right now I'm totally in a knit phase, and I think it's because it's winter and it's cold, and I just want to make cozy cut, like snuggly things, and that's typically knits. So I am in a knit phase right now, but I don't really have a preference. I love to sew both of them, and I may go whole hog with one for a while, and then I'm done and ready to switch to the other one for a while. So it just kind of whatever the mood strikes. What are a few of your most painful sewing projects? Oh, painful. I can't really, yeah, there's been a lot of things that just haven't worked out, or, I will get started and then it's just not going well. And again, like it'll go into the bucket of shame. And sometimes, I have a wool skirt. I'm looking at my bucket of shame over there, a wool skirt, and it's just a mini skirt. And I was trying to put a lined lapped zipper in it, but it's a very thick wool. I got a yard of it. It was a remnant. Can't even remember now where I got it. But a very simple project. But for whatever reason, because it's so thick, I could not get the lap zipper to look right in that skirt. And so it has been sitting in my bucket of shame. And I tried to line it and just do a Petersham ribbon facing. I think I was trying to get a little too fancy with it when I didn't need to. And I get frustrated and then I just put it away. So yeah, I definitely have sewing fails. I made a seam work. What is the name of it? It's their jacket. It's a coat. It's like a boxed. I'll pop a picture of it. And I did this shortly after I started sewing because again, don't do anything halfway. And it's before I really understood fitting. And so I made it to fit my bust, which now I know it was just gigantic in the shoulders and just did not fit. It looked really dumpy on me. And that was unfortunate because I used a really nice wool for that coat and had a fun lining it and everything, and that one had to go. So that, there's definitely ones that, I tried to make work, tried to power through, and then, yeah, it just didn't work. Okay, have you ever spent a ton of money on really expensive fabric only to have the project fail? Yeah, I have. I am not a big fan of muslins, and I know I should be. If I have like really, really expensive something, I will save and, maybe do a muslin or a toile. But I had some Pendleton wool that was gifted to me, actually. So it was from someone's stash that had for like a long, long, long time. And I was making the Una or Yona coat from paper. I can't remember now. Paper Cutter named patterns. Anyway. And it doesn't really matter. Anyway, it was a PDF, and this is when I was first figuring out PDFs, and the code had just come out, and someone had made it a blogger, and I just loved it. And so I decided I'm going to use this Pendleton wool on it, and it's not a fitted coat. It's pretty loose. And anyway, I got everything cut out and went to try it on to determine, got it partially sewn to determine sleeve length. And anyway, long story short, it had printed out at 90%, not 100%. So it was too small, like way too small. I had basically done a petite coat, which would have been great had I known that chose like a larger size for my bust, but it just didn't work. And actually it's still hanging on that rack back there, I think. Or no, maybe I did. Sometimes it's best to purge those projects. But yes. So yes, I have cut into expensive fabric and had it fail. Sometimes I will try and salvage it. I made a top for myself out of Liberty that I couldn't get my arms into. I have salvaged that for pocket linings and various things, and for some bias binding. But yeah, it happens. But I also don't want to just hoard my good stuff just to languish in my stash because, then it's doing no good just sitting, I would rather have messed it up and have to use it for pocket linings and bias binding and that kind of thing than to never sew it. So there you go. Okay. Let's see here. We are to Natalie. What are your top 5 must-have sewing tools? What would they be for a beginner, and what things are worth the investment? Okay, well, for a beginner, I'm assuming that you've got like your basic stuff, like your sewing machine, seam rippers, scissors, that kind of thing. I would say a rotary cutter and a cutting mat would be one, because I prefer that to, you need fabric scissors for little things, but that is my definite preferred way of cutting out. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be a tailor's ham. They aren't expensive. And these are my top 5 sewing tools, and I would say that these would all be for beginners. So definitely a tailor's ham. That is like, yes. And I'm also assuming that you've got like an iron, because you need an iron to sew. So I'm not going to count that one, but a good steamy iron. But yes, a tailor's ham. Number 3, I should have thought of these a little bit better maybe before. Something that I use a ton. Clear rulers. I use clear rulers all the time for cutting out, for measuring, all that kind of stuff. So like the 2x18, but the clear gridded rulers, those are, yes. I use that all of the time. So that would be number 3. Number 4, and again, I'm trying to go like a little different than what, than just like your scissors, because definitely it's worth it for a good pair of fabric scissors. That's, yeah, hands down, yes. Pinking shears will be number 4. A good pair of pinking shears, because that's what I do instead of clipping notches when I'm doing tailoring in jackets and blazers and stuff. I just pink the seams, because then it puts your notches in for you. And it's super easy, and it kind of grades it for you all at once. And that, yes, good pair of pinking shears. And those are the scissors that cut zigzaggy when you cut. So that's 4. And then 5, let's see. I'm going to go with, I'm going to think of things afterwards, but I should have said that. I'm going to go with a sleeve board. Again, for pressing. It is just so nice to do sleeves and pants on the sleeve board to get, it's like, it looks like a little mini ironing board. And it usually has like a little bit bigger one on top, and then the bottom will have a skinnier one, so you can do pant legs and sleeves a little differently. So yeah, those would be my 5 top sewing tools. And let me know if you guys want me to link anything. I'm not going to, but if if I get enough requests for it or whatever, I can definitely give you some links for all those things. Actually, I'm going to just put in the description. Wallwack.com has all that stuff, and they're amazing and very cost effective, and you should buy things from Wallwack. And I'll put a link to their website down below. Okay. I think we're down to So Busy Lizzie. Yes. Okay, how long do you keep each capsule wardrobe? You have to have a lot of clothes making so many things every week. Do you ever add in trendy pieces, and how do you determine if it's time to let things go? Okay, so capsule wardrobe sewing for me is pretty new, like in the past year. But really, I'm a purger anyway. I don't keep a lot of clothes in my closet, and I never really have. Yes, and to answer the question about, I do add in trendy pieces. I typically won't, and now I'm making everything. But beforehand, when I was buying stuff, I would not spend as much on trendy items. My wardrobe and my style tends more towards classic, and I don't mind spending a lot of money, or now that I'm sewing, a lot of time and cost on materials, doing more classic type stuff. But yeah, the trendier items, I maybe will use a little less expensive fabric, although I am a little bit of a fabric snob. I only recently have allowed polyester into my life, other than like with my swimsuit stuff and my athletic wear. So I I still like nice things, like nice cottons, linens, rayons, that kind of stuff. But yeah, for trendier pieces, I may just, spend a little less on fabric. So I mean, I have a decent amount of clothes, but again, not a lot. I will wear things until they fall. If I love something, there's two categories in my closet. Things that I love that I will wear to death until they just look completely ratty and it's time to let them go. Sometimes they're still maybe okay to be donated, but a lot of times they just don't look good. Like they are worn out, just from being washed and worn, because I wear a lot of the same things. Now again, I'm talking like t-shirts and that kind of thing, leggings, things that maybe wear out a little easier. Now, I keep my items capsule wardrobe just forever, really, just because a lot of the stuff I make is classic and it's stuff that doesn't go out of style. Now it may be that I don't hang on to clothes that I don't fit into anymore. I'm a big believer in that I'm the size that I am right now. That's fantastic. I'm not going to hang on to clothes that are way too big for me, and I'm not going to hang on to clothes that are way too small for me. That's just not, maybe a season I'll let that slide, but that is just not good for my mental health. So I am a big one that if it doesn't fit and if I don't feel good in it, it goes. And I do go through my closet every season as I'm changing over. So my spring and summer stuff lives upstairs, and my fall and winter things are in my current closet right now. And when I make that switch, because I've shown you, I have a very small part of our regular closet, which I actually prefer, because then I am just looking at the clothes that I can wear right then. And I'm not getting, bogged down or confused by the things that are for summer or whatever. So, yes, when I do that switch over, I go through, and if anything doesn't fit, if it doesn't make me feel good, or if I'm just like ho-hum about it, I'm pretty quick to give it the axe, and it's time to let it go, to be donated or given to a family member. A lot of times I'll give things to my sister or mom if they're more into it. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach my closet and my capsule sewing. And eventually my sewing at this pace will probably have to slow down a little bit, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. For right now, we're full charge ahead, because I've just kind of gotten obsessed with the capsule sewing. Okay, so this is a long video. We are getting close to 30 minutes, so I'm going to let you guys go. That was all the questions. Again, if you did send me a question and I did not get to it, put it in this comment section down below, and I will get to it the next time I do a Q&A. So for Tuesday, I think I'm going to do my 2018 Make 9, and I'm going a little different with that. And I'll also maybe talk a little bit about Sew My Style, because I'm helping with that, and actually I'm one of the leaders for February. So I'll be doing a lot about Sew My Style in February, which is t-shirts, which is very exciting. So anyway, so that is it for today. If you have any questions or comments, again, put it in the comment section, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And again, I hope you guys are having a wonderful new year so far, and I will see you soon. Bye!